Principal Matters Podcast, episode 265. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week I bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. This week, I'm bringing you part 2 of my conversation with Daniel Bauer on his new book, Mastermind, Unlocking Talent Within Every School Leader. If you have not picked up a copy of that book, please go to betterschools.com or Amazon, and you can find a copy there. I wanted to give a couple of notes before we jump back into part 2 of this conversation. First, I just want to say thank you. As of the release of this week's episode, Principal Matters Podcast has been downloaded more than 600,000 times. And so I'm just so thrilled, pleased, encouraged, and gratified by the ability to connect with a community of leaders like you who take time to listen and learn together. If you have not rated this podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, please do, because it makes it more visible to others. And if you haven't shared it lately with a friend, please do. If you find value in these conversations, please share this podcast with others, because I want to see this community to continue to grow. And it encourages me to keep creating content when I see that growth. So thank you for the 600,000 downloads as of this episode, and I'm looking forward to the next 500,000 so we can get to that huge goal that I would love to see and reach someday. Also, I just want to tell you that as I'm stepping into the fall and looking at winter, I would love to hear from you. If you have challenges, obstacles, concerns, or celebrations, reach out. You can always find me at my website or just email me directly at will@williamdparker.com, and I would love to communicate with you and find out what's going on in your school, your community, and how I might be able to help or support, point you to resources that could benefit your work. Well, I hope you enjoy part 2 of this conversation with Danny Bauer as we jump right back into the middle of a share on the ways that masterminds have helped unlock the talent within leaders.
And then the other thing I wanted to say is, like you mentioned, how you would refer anybody to my mastermind. I'd happily do that for you as well. And I have. I put my money where my mouth is, in the sense that I remember doing a show that was a hard sell, so to speak, like join the mastermind type thing. And then I linked in the show notes, not only talked about it, but linked to your website, to Jethro's website. And I'm not sure if you're aware, like Jen David Lang is doing a mastermind. And so I said, here's all the people that are doing it, right? Three reasons. One, collaborate versus competition, right? And if you have a strong enough, what Simon Sinek calls a just cause, in mine's to connect, grow, and mentor every school leader who wants to level up, I can't do that by myself, right? There's too many principals and one of me. So it's a win for my just cause, which is a great one if you serve school leaders, and I'm happy to point people in your direction, who knows what other points I wanted to make, but that collaboration piece and just having that just cause, like, to me, that's just a winning formula, So, and I wasn't always that way. Okay. I remember when I came onto the scene and I looked at Jethro's podcast and Justin Bader's, because they were established before I was. And I said, I'm going to crush these guys. And honestly, that's who I was in the beginning of 2015. And then when I joined the mastermind and got linked up with Aaron Walker, he's like, what are you doing, man? And he helped shape my mindset. And then the infinite game with the just cause. So I've changed, right? People change, is growth mindset. But I reserve the right to change my opinion on stuff. And so that's a winning attitude. And think about the context of school. Here's the last thing on the riff. Schools compete. Why? If we shared what works for kids I'm just talking even within a district, who cares who the best school is and the second best and then the worst? We need to talk about what works for all the kids and do that for all the kids, versus worry about the ranking of it all. And so that's a compete, collaboration, just cause riff.
Oh, so many great takeaways there, Danny. Thank you for all those clarifications. And again, for your authenticity. You also talk a lot in this new book about the power of belonging And so let's go there for just a few minutes. How have you seen that sense of belonging as something important in leadership growth?
At the end of the day, Will, people want to experience being seen and being heard, you know? And I think everybody really is answering two questions, because I'm talking to principals and APs right now, even if you have teachers that are listening, thinking about your students. But people want to know, does the leader care about me, right? And am I doing a good job? That's really the two questions they're trying to answer. And so by creating belonging, which is shared purpose, and we kind of talked about that with the mindset scorecard, we have agreements, we have values within the mastermind, creating an inclusive environment too, right? And respecting the diverse backgrounds and worldviews and experiences people bring to the table. And then trust, right? Those three components, shared purpose, inclusive environment, and trust, creates belonging. But if people know that they're cared for and that they're doing all right, or if they're not doing all right, like here's how to improve, that's what it's all about. And if you figure it out, like you are on your way to creating a world-class culture for sure.
I feel compelled to ask this question, Danny, and it's not in my notes. So go whatever direction you want to go with this. But I'm just always intrigued when I talk to you because everybody has their own superpowers, the things that they're really good at. And so I don't know if you use it, maybe I got that term from you. I can't remember, but what do you consider to be those superpowers that make Danny Bauer so uniquely fit for the work that you're doing now?
Whew, that's an awesome question. Part of it is like everything I teach, I experiment on myself, So whether it's the dashboard and showing the results, like literally everything I teach, like objectives and key results, the vivid vision, and that's morphed into, I've made it my own. But all that stuff, like that's a superpower. So I practice what I preach, like either I've implemented it or somebody I'm coaching and serving has implemented it and experienced the results. That's a superpower. The relational side of things, I've just realized like that's where success lies. Like success leaves clues, I've heard that as a quote. I love that as a quote. And so if you study people who are, very successful, then you have to evaluate for yourself, like, who do you want to be? There's people who lie, cheat, and steal their way to the top. And you can do that. I'm pretty sure when your number is up, you're going to look back and reflect on a very, like a missed opportunity and an empty life. And I just don't want that. I want to have a life that has been full of connection, of compassion, of relationships. And so anyways, I'm a builder in that sense. Another superpower, and this will be the last one I share, because anyways, just thinking, we talked about being an unorthodox leadership coach, right? So, and you've heard me say that's an edge I've chosen. So the authenticity of dashboard's an edge. Another one is like, at least in the context of my mastermind, there is 0 books that we read in education, right? Not because I don't like the content, but because I believe probably a lot of the members are already reading most of that stuff. And one of the things that I want to create in terms of value wise is exposing them to ideas that they might not have come across if it wasn't for the books that I chose or those ideas. And so that's a superpower too. And the weird thing as well is that I think being an educator actually set me up to really succeed in business because of the relationships. Because like, think about getting 150 kids, right, per day, that you have to convince whatever you're teaching is interesting. That's super hard, right? Nobody cares about Better Leaders, Better Schools in the mastermind in my book. But there's a good portion of people that do care. So my job is to find out like who those people are and powerfully serve them. But again, it goes back to belonging, seeing and hearing people, the relationship side of things. So, I'm trying to connect a few dots there, but yeah, I think those are some of my superpowers.
Well, I appreciate that. And I just want to reflect on that too, Danny. And I'm always trying to think of how to make sure that I'm turning this conversation to application for those that are listening, because
Right.
personally, I'm really intrigued in this conversation because I just love the opportunity to pick your brain personally. But I want to make sure that I'm not being selfish in this moment. And I just want to ask others to think about this too. So let me reflect for just a moment on why I think those superpowers have been so good for you and the people you're helping. We live in a world that defines success in a lot of different ways. And so in our culture, sometimes success is just how much money you can make or how many awards you can receive or what job position you end up getting, or maybe we put our value in how our family is turning out or how great our kids do. I mean, there's a lot of places we tie our value. But one of the things that I've appreciated about your work is your your willingness to err on the side of collaboration and openness and sharing, even with the risk of, in the business world, of that competition sometimes getting messy with the friendships. Because what I've seen you do is, you might have an idea. I'll use a really practical example. When I launched my first mastermind, I discovered something new and really encouraging that I had never experienced before. You helped inspire me to consider doing that. But mine is not like yours, and yours is not like mine. There's no way I can ever be you. Right. And there's no way that, and that's just one piece of the work that I do now. It's not all that I do, and it probably won't be all that I do because I do other things. And so there's things that I enjoy that are kind of part of my superpowers. And so I just really appreciate that, especially as a pioneer in this industry with podcasting and masterminding and so much of the work that you've done, Danny, that you've been generous, because I think that generosity creates environments for other people to gain ideas. And so I don't know if that's helpful for people that are listening, but as I asked you that question because I've seen you exercising these gifts and talents over time. And I've probably only known you for 5 or 6 years now, but in 5 or 6 years, I mean, that's a pretty good career gauge. And in 5 or 6 years, I've just seen you consistently delivering value, helping other people, growing your own personal and business growth happening. And so I just think those qualities are important for leaders to think about themselves. Authenticity matters. Integrity still matters. Collaboration still matters. And as we were wrapping up that last question, connecting yourself to another community where you feel like you belong and you can share purpose and you can be a part of that kind of value system is important too, because you and I both know that a lot of leaders feel like they're on islands. And so to the privilege of being a part of a community of other like-minded people who share these kinds of values that we're talking about right now can sometimes be unique, because sometimes people can find themselves struggling to find other people who share those same kinds of values. And I know that you and I attract certain kinds of listeners who resonate with the kinds of values that we talk about too. So feel free to add more to those before I ask this last question, but I do want to wrap this up soon, but you may have some other ideas you want to add to that.
No, I think your reflection was generous, and I appreciate what you shared there. But yeah, we can move on for sure.
Well, tell me why you like to use the term level up, because that's kind of a Danny Bauer term.
Yeah, I wonder where I got it from. I wonder if it was like a love of growing up with video games and the idea of like, Mario and getting a mushroom and like, oh, now you're Super Mario. So like that could be some of where it comes from, quite honestly. But that's I talked about my personal value, the sponge that scales, right? So if it's that invest, learn, teach as a model of growth, also within that is just this experience of leveling up. And an investment in yourself, an investment in your growth, even if you get just 5% better, you're never going to be disappointed with those results, right? And so that's just, to me, that's the path. That's the path to success. That's a part of it. It's just continuing to grow. Maybe it's because I get bored easily too, and that kind of thing. But now that I surround myself with very high performing leaders, that's a common trait, right? Like you're able to accomplish stuff. Cool. So now what can you do that has even more impact and serve and help more people? And that's the space I'm in. I thought forever that I would stay sort of like small, however you would define small. And now, honestly, internally, I talk about serving 1,200 school leaders in the short term future. And then like the big, hairy, audacious goal is 5,000, right? And because I know it'll transform lives, right? So to me, that's like what leveling up is all about.
Well, Danny Bauer, thank you for your generosity in the work that you've done with thousands of school leaders and for this new book that listeners can check out, which is Mastermind: Unlocking Talent Within Every School Leader. I wanted to give you an opportunity for any closing thoughts for listeners, and please remind everyone how they can stay connected to you.
Yeah, thanks, Will. So pretty much on social everywhere, I'm at Alien Earbud, which is an anagram for my name, Daniel Bauer. Take the letters, mix them up, and you come up with something creative. Daniel at betterleadersbetterschools.com. There's a free chapter for you too. So if you go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/free chapter, you can get an hors d'oeuvre before tasting the full entree for the book. Now, I'd love to work with some of your listeners, right? And maybe I'm the right fit, maybe I'm not. So that's a part of it. But here's the other reason for writing the book. I want people to integrate the ABCs of why the mastermind works, that authenticity, belonging, and challenge. I want them to integrate that in the professional development they provide their staff, right? And then I also want them to use the ABCs as a tool to evaluate PD they might invest in for themselves, because in my view, if those ABCs are there, it leads to life and leadership transformation. So I see more people probably launching masterminds as a result of reading the book. I see people leveling up the PD they provide their staff, and then there'll be, a few people that end up joining the work that I do or you do.
Well, Danny Bauer, thank you so much. And Principal Matters listeners, thank you for the time you've taken to learn and listen today, and we'll talk to you soon. Hi, friends. Thank you for sticking with this episode till its very end. And as I'm wrapping up, sometimes if you've been a longtime listener, I'll play some bonus tracks, and I'm going to just do that this time because Danny and I continued a little bit of chatter after closing the show that may be helpful for you as you think about the ways that you are growing in your own leadership and can encourage growth in one another. There are so many times where I will open up an email from you and I'll see you saying something or doing something. And when I send you those little kudos, it's not because I'm just trying to be a nice guy. It's because I'm like, oh my gosh, Danny just dropped some value here that is really good. I just want to make sure somebody's telling you that is really good. So keep it up.
Probably, as I do, I think like for as many people as we influence and that kind of thing, the misconception is that you have this like waterfall of praise and encouragement coming in, which is not the truth. Right. And so the fact that you take the time out of your day to say those things, I experience that as incredibly sincere, and it always really brightens my day. So I appreciate that so much.
Well, and I kind of feel in some ways, you inspire me too, because you've taken a lot of risk in jumping out on your own and doing some things you dreamed of doing. Right. But so thank you for your inspiration and for the models that you've created, because I know you've not done nothing you've done has been easy. I can guarantee you that. Because I know nothing I've done is easy.
No, that's what. And here's the thing: the people that like say do this, the people that sell easy are full of baloney. So if you want to experience like dramatic results, you got to put in the work, and that's all right. It makes a better story too, and I think it just makes it feel that much more satisfying. And then the other thing, you might pick up a book called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. And I'll give you the assertion that he makes, right? Like, we often look for the how, right? Like, how do I grow my email list, or how do I grow the mastermind podcast downloads, et cetera? And that's, according to Dan, it's the wrong question. And the whole book is about finding the right who. Okay. And in the context of what you just shared, I don't do the website anymore. I used to, and it looked okay, right? Now it looks professional because I've hired professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
The videos, maybe you're talking about those, but pretty much like all of that stuff, like I still do all my own writing, but video content, that kind of stuff, like that's somebody, Laura, that I've hired, and she's great with that. And so it's just finding the right people to surround yourself with, to take care of it for you. And that's in, and if you look at me launching the new cohorts, that's another who, right? It's not how to get more people to join the mastermind. It's like, who can I get to lead and show up powerfully and serve, authentically, and that sort of thing with integrity. So, and we got the right coaches. So it'll continue to grow. We have a new group opening on August 10th. I don't know if I shared that. So that's like super fun, and it's just the right people. It's all about the right people.
Thanks for all you do, my friend. And thanks for giving me almost an hour of your day.
No, this was awesome. Thank you, because I know how busy you are, and just the fact that, you'll lift me up and promote me like that, that means so much. So